Then I want to go back to 2015, where you did this talk in Bangalore at the Thai event called the Leapfrog event, which you popularly refer to as the WhatsApp moment in banking. And in that talk, you made a lot of predictions. And recently, I went and saw the talk on YouTube again. And I was kind of struck by how many of those predictions have come true. You said a lot can happen in 5 years, and a lot has. So one of the things you said is that we will go from being a data-poor nation to being a data-rich nation. And I want to hear your views on how that is playing out.
No, thanks, Sanjay. And I remember you helped me with that presentation and gave a demo on stage of an iris phone camera. So that was a good time. I think that was August of 2015. And but the big year in India was actually 2016 because several things happened together in 2016. In 2016, April 4th, Aadhar reached 1 billion people. So 1 billion people had Aadhar on April 4th, 2016. And then on April 11th of 2016, exactly a week later, UPI got launched. And then in September of 2016, Geo got launched. And in November of 2016, demonetization happened. So all these things happened in the same year, and essentially, I think that laid the foundation for this revolution that we are seeing now. And our basic thesis on this data rich and all that was that, in the Western world, when internet and mobile internet came about, per capita incomes were $30,000, $40,000 per person, and the US was spending $600 billion a year on advertising. And therefore, the logical business for the West was moving advertising to the digital world, which is what Google and Facebook did. And today, essentially it was a move of revenue from the print and the TV world to the digital world. Because at that level of income, advertising made sense to, sell things to people. But in India, you're going to be at, $2,000, $3,000 per capita income. But your digital footprint is similar or more than the US. So if you are therefore data rich before you're economically rich, is there a way to use your data as a way to advance your life, to improve your life? And that's the basic thesis of data empowerment. So it's basically not a model elsewhere, it's a model of people using their own data to get ahead in life.
So that's something which we have seen play out, with a lot of the cash flow-based lending and other data models that are coming out. And I just wanted to push on that again and see, sometimes it feels you're very early in the journey, sometimes it feels that, we've made a lot of progress. And I just want to get your take on that.
No, even that journey, incidentally or coincidentally, began in 2016 because the Reserve Bank of India came out with the standards of what's called an account aggregator. And we had a meeting, some of us met with RBI, and we talked about data empowerment, and they said, why don't you use this construct we already have called account aggregator? And I think it took several years to get the AA system going. 5 or 6 guys had to come forward. It takes a long time to build an ecosystem. But I think we are now on the verge of takeoff. And I think database lending is going to take off in a big way. And that's also part of your inclusion thing, that because of the fact that lending will be based on data, millions of individuals and millions of businesses who so far could not get access to, and my friend Vijay Mahajan helped me with some of that early thinking. The account aggregator-based, database lending is going to take off in a big way in the coming years. So I think, and that's going to drive lending to millions of individuals and small businesses. And I think that's going to make a huge difference.
So again, coming up to the topic around financial inclusion, many years ago, we defined financial inclusion by metrics like bank account access. And now we've sort of gone and redefined it to include the lack of, to get appropriate financial products to each user in the country. And not only do they have to be appropriate, they also have to be affordable. So I think, we've seen this massive change, and I again wanted to think that we've done well on payments, we've done well on account opening, KYC and all of that. We've not done as well on credit, and we hope that will change. And then Insurance, again, we are underpenetrated. Pensions, we are underpenetrated. How do you see that story becoming fuller and more evolved?
No, I think it's a ladder of capability. I mean, when I met Vijay 15 years back, and he explained to me that you need ID, you need an account, you need to receive money, you need to send money. That's basic, right? And we didn't have at that time. So that's been cracked, right? 700 million new bank accounts, Aadhar. See, two things happened. The government flow into bank accounts through DBT and the private flow through remittance came together on the same pipe. And therefore, you could drive this whole account opening, payments, and UPI enabled then peer-to-peer and peer-to-merchant. So all that got done. Now, the next big thing obviously will be credit, because now we will have basic infrastructure in place and people will be able to use their digital footprints to get credit. So a small business can give the details of what it has sold because it has all UPI details, payment details. It has all invoices details. It has balance sheet details. So they can package all that and give it to a lender. So I think getting a loan will be as easy as making a payment in the next 3 to 4 years. Now, when that happens, for the first time anywhere in the world, you will have this real-time, on your phone, instant credit capability based on data, not just some random stuff. So I think credit will get started. See, credit is the heartbeat of the economy. If you want individuals to buy things and grow, they need credit to buy. If you want merchants to build inventory and grow their company, they need credit to do that. So once we lubricate, and this is proper credit, based on data. It's not, though it's unsecured, right, it's still based on data. So if you lubricate the buying side with credit for the buyer, consumer, BNPL, whatever, and if you can lubricate on the seller side by giving him, that's going to make a big difference. Now, so credit is a pull product because the country is starved of credit. But other things like insurance and pensions are push products. Because, when you're living in the here and now, telling somebody that you need an insurance policy because something will happen in 30 years from now, or you need to save now for your retirement, I mean, just too much to deal with. So I think they will take time to penetrate. And also, for example, your first insurance may be transactional insurance, right? Every time you take a ride in a Ola or Uber, you get credit for that ride, or every time you buy a plane ticket, you get insurance for that, and so on. So I think different models will evolve, but I think if we get accounts, payments, account opening, UPI kind of stuff, credit, all that going, then the next layers will build on that.
So on that note, I mean, you always held that right now, for instance, we see a lot of startups, people come to us and say, we'll give people a loan when they have a health emergency.
When?
They have a health emergency. So our view was that instead of waiting for that health emergency, if you're able to get insurance, because there is a loss of income and there's a whole bunch of things. So instead of a health loan, health insurance is a better product. But we have not seen that uptick at all. And is there some way by which that demand can be driven?
I don't know. I mean, I think if you can, I think many of the more government-oriented programs do have a lot of families.
No, that's
Ayushman Bharat has more than 100 million families. So I think it'll all happen. I mean, it's a continuum. We're trying to squeeze into a few decades what took other countries hundreds of years to develop, right? So, and we're doing it with the digital architecture. So it'll happen, but I think I think the credit will then create a huge new set of opportunities.
Sure. So again, because you're talking about innovation, I wanted to bring up this point. After the RBI committee on payments that you led, the RBI actually started publishing a metric on financial inclusion called the Financial Inclusion Index. And they measure it on 3 axes. One is access, and there is usage, and the third is quality. And they went back to a time before the report. So there were about 5 years of data now. And what they've shown is that over 5 years, you've seen improvement in both access and usage. But the quality metric has barely budged. And I actually think about it in terms of innovation, right? They don't have enough innovation in products. I just wanted to get your take on that.
No, I think that's where, the firms that you support and your partners make so much of a difference, because what we can do at a population scale is build the core infrastructure, make it cheap, affordable, real-time, instant, all that stuff. But finally, it needs some innovator to take that product, take that basic capability and get the product market fit right so that some person in some small village or town has access to a product which makes sense for them at that point in time. So that's where the role of innovators comes in. And I think you have funded people like Setu and Kaleido and all that. And they're all trying to do that at the edge. So I think our view is that this game is about three things. One is you need digital public infrastructure. Aadhar, UPI, AA. This is population scale. You need to make sure this infrastructure is accessible to everybody, a level playing field, open APIs and all that. And then you need private innovation on top of that. It's the private innovation, especially particularly the inclusion-oriented innovation that your companies do, that will finally address the last quality issue on this thing.
Okay. Coming to the G20, and we have these events all across the country, and the government of India has announced that they're looking to offer the digital infrastructure that's being built in India to the rest of the world. And all the folks in this room are building on top of that infrastructure. And in some sense, this could represent an opportunity for all of them to think about addressing markets that go beyond our borders. And I just want to sort of come back to you, because you're also leading a task force on G20. How you think about that as an opportunity? Is it about just like the software export boom we had earlier, or is it about expertise or partnerships and so on? I just want us to sort of give a view to the community here.
Yeah. No, I think there's tremendous interest. I was at the meeting last week in Bangalore, and I met with many countries, and they're all quite amazed at what's happened here. They all want to bring in at least some of it there. Now, obviously, if they adopt the same standards, then, and you build a product or application on this standard, it'll apply there. I mean, think of what happened with GSM. GSM was a European standard, but when India adopted GSM as the standard for mobile phones, then it allowed European manufacturers, Ericsson, Nokia, and all to sell phones here because it's all GSM based. So similarly, in theory, if they adopt exactly the same standards and you have built a product here, then that product should work there. But we don't know exactly how this will all shape up. We'll have to see that, because the ID thing is coming from MOSIP, and they'll build it in that using the open source stack. UPI, and Dilip was here this morning, I think UPI Global is going to many countries. So it's not clear the exact end game, how it look like. But I think if standardized software from India becomes the de facto standard, then obviously anyone building on top of that can apply that anywhere.
So, similarly, I think India's had this huge digital divide, right? And now some of it is being bridged. And I'm sure the rest of the world has a similar story, particularly the developing world. And I wanted to, again, get your take on how it is changing in India, because we've, I think, become one of the largest consumers of data per capita. So is that actually helping us bridge that divide, or is it sort of changing the number of people on each side in a way that is different? And how do we do it how do we reduce the divide, and how do we bridge over it so that even people who are not digitally savvy or they don't have the right access can still use the benefits of what is being built?
Well, I think digital divide only follows from other divides in your society, right? I mean, if many people are poor and they can't afford to buy a device, so it starts from the fact that they don't have the income to afford a device. Or if many people are illiterate and they can't operate a keyboard, then that becomes, so it's linked to inherent social issues of inequality, income, illiteracy, and so on. One is, of course, we have to reduce the costs of things so people can acquire, or come out with the innovative pricing models so people can rent or pay on a AMI or all that. That is the financial side. But also, I think it's about several things. I mean, one of the reasons why the internet took off, just to give you a sense of the dynamics, before Jio was launched, India's consumption was half a gig a day. Half a gig a month. And after Jio, it became half a gig a day. So there was 30x increase in data consumption. But what are they doing? They're watching videos. That's why there was so much increase in TikTok or some Instagram video or whatever, Reels, something. So I think video broke one barrier, right? You didn't have to be literate to see a video. The second thing is, I think, voice recognition. And I think now more and more, if you're able to give instructions and all that through voice, then you don't need to know how to operate a keyboard, or you don't need to know how to write. And the third thing is going to be Indian language. And I think with the work going on in Bhashini and AI for Bharat, we'll have Indian language capabilities where in 22 Indian languages you'll be able to do everything you want. And therefore, a person can get access to his services in his own language with voice commands. Then suddenly, your divide goes down further. So I think you have to systematically break down the barrier. But finally, it's about the affordability also. If a person can't afford a phone, or if a phone has only one, if a family has only one smartphone in the family, you can't say the parents will use it for their work and the kids will use it for studying, because you can't do both at the same time. So those are fundamental issues we have to tackle.
So coming to, I think the remaining challenges, right? I mean, we have, I think, come a long way in the last 10, 15 years. And what sort of remains for us?
Well, I think clearly the full growth expansion of account aggregator is really going to make a huge difference, because India will go from a prepaid economy to a postpaid economy in the next 10 years. And that will drive huge amount of economic growth. It will also drive huge amount of job creation, because if 20 million small businesses get access to credit and they're able to add 2 more employees, that's 40 million more jobs they create. So I think that one story is there. Then, of course, there's the Indian language access through machine AI-based language translation. Then there's OnDC, which is going to allow every small shopkeeper to participate in commerce and provide hyper-local commerce. Then I think the whole logistics revolution that's happening, whether it's because of better roads and ports, or GST, or FASTag, and massive warehouse building. So there's going to be a massive increase in logistical efficiency. So essentially, we have already got the services side done. If the goods side, movement of goods also becomes simplified, then it will allow national markets to do better. So I think all these things are going to happen in the next 10 years.
And what would you ask the entrepreneurial community here to do to make it happen?
No, I think there are going to be, lots and lots of opportunities. I mean, you have to get the business model right, you get the product market fit right, you get the pricing right. There's so many things in an enterprise. So I can't say which company will win. But I think there are going to be huge opportunities for all the folks here. And, every day I see some new young person who has got some phenomenal idea which I wouldn't have thought of in my wildest dreams. So clearly, there's so much of original thinking going on. I'm very bullish on that.
Great. I want to actually now throw it open to the audience. Okay. First, please introduce yourself. Can we get the mics, please? To the lady in front, second row. Please introduce yourself and then a short question.
Yeah, my name is Meera Harish Nandan. Hi. I'm from an organization called Sattva. Nandan, my question for you is, while we saw Aadhar and UPI kind of pop scale with agility, etc., and we're very proud of it today, do you see the similar agility happening in Ayushman Bharat, ABDM? And do you think that will it be challenging, and are the benefits to the citizen in ABDM clear as yet in health?
Well, I think it's going to happen. But remember, all these things take years to, Aadhar was conceived in 2009. It reached 1 billion Aadhars only in 2016. And usage climbed only much later. UPI was conceived in 2013. And now it's reached 300 billion a day. So it takes 5-10 years for things to bake on the ground, because a lot of moving parts. Regulators have to be there, technology has to be done, market actors should get involved. So I think on that side, this ABDM and all are very powerful ideas, like electronic health records, interoperability of health services. But I think that getting all these pieces in place, the digital infrastructure, the APIs, market operators, I think that, I'm not sure it's all fully there. But it's in the next few years, it should happen. I'm quite sure it'll happen.
Fourth row.
Hi Nandan, this is Rajat here from Google. My question is this is, we talked a lot about account aggregation and how credit is going to change the shape. But with this data privacy, do you see data privacy also becoming an issue as data become publicly available for some of these
No,
credit
there's no connection between data privacy and credit. Because when I ask for credit, I will use my data with my consent from secure sources and give it encrypted to the lender to take a decision with my consent rules. So it's about as secure as you can get. And if you look at the whole architecture of AA, if I'm a small business, I'll go to my bank and get a bank statement encrypted. I'll go to income tax and get my TDS returns encrypted. I'll go to GST and get my invoices and GST returns encrypted. And that is passed by the AA, and the AA can't see this stuff. So it's a pass-through for the AA. He can't open the data and see what's inside. Pass-through and give it to the lender. And then I can tell the lender under what conditions you can use the data. I can say it's for one-time use. You can use it only for 1 week. So actually, it's a very sophisticated infrastructure for privacy.
She has the mic.
Namaste, sir. I am Anusha. I am the founder of a startup called Kalashcharya. So we onboard vendors and we display their products, Make in India products. It's like a vendor directory and artist directory. So my startup is just 1 year old. So I want to ask you, like, can we use Aadhar card to, verify their identity? Because my startup is not so. It's just 1 year old.
I don't know what the rules are from UIDAI, but would they allow for every?
You can ask for it.
Actually, you can do offline Aadhar.
Offline Aadhar.
KYC.
Don't
we
go on.
don't need anybody for that.
Thank you, sir.
Use the XML and you can just verify on the XML.
Mike, please.
Hello, Nandan sir. This is Mitesh here. I am founder of Miss Call Pay. We are one of the first startups in actually on UPI on voice.
UPI and voice.
UPI 1 to 3 pay for feature phones actually. So first of all, actually, thank you for all the innovations that.
Can you move to the
you
question
brought in.
quickly, please?
Yeah. So my main question is, sir, what inspires you? Like
What inspires me?
Yeah, because I'm a product guy. I want to know what started Nandan to think that about Aadhar and then UPI, then connecting so many fantastic innovations so that India is blessed with your innovations, sir. I'm a product guy. I would like to know that and embrace it, and I would like to.
There's no special secret formula or anything. Yeah? Just every day you get up and do something, and then you do that for 5 years, something happens. It's simple as that.
Wow, that
Great. Thanks, Mitesh. Can you just pass the mic on?
Hi, I am Piyush from Grameen Foundation. So my question is that my question is on ONDC. Are we also planning to have assisted mode on ONDC? Because through the business correspondent channel, just like BBPS, once it got on the assisted mode through BCs that can pay for the bill payment, are we also planning to have an assisted e-commerce on ONDC because it's not planned for right now?
No, I think it's up to you at the edge to provide that. ONDC just provides the protocol which connects consumers, businesses, suppliers, and delivery guys. Mm-hmm. So on the edge of that, if you want to provide assisted commerce, nobody's stopping you. I mean, you can have a network of CSCs or BCs who do the commerce. And as long as their interaction with the system is through your ONDC protocol, it doesn't matter to the ONDC system. ONDC is just a set of protocols. Yeah, absolutely. So in fact, I think assisted commerce will be a big part of what happens with ONDC.
So there are one more thing is that so these BC agents can actually onboard the local MSMEs on the ONDC platform one side, and the second side they can also go, work as an assisted e-commerce where customers can go on an outlet and do an assisted e-commerce. But the whole business model is not designed in a way which incentivizes a BC agent to onboard a customer or an agent. So that pricing model, we face the same problem in BBPS as well, where assisted mode was not incentivized enough to take on that. So are we also kind of trying to incentivize the model?
I don't know. We'll have to talk to the ONDC guys whether, but in general, I don't know whether they get to the business model of it, right?
No, I don't think so. I think they're very independent of the business model. So the buyer side and the seller side platforms can do what they need to do.
Yeah, it's really up to you to figure out what should be the business model.
Thank you so much.
Can you pass the mic? That's it, I think.
Hi.
Mohammed, then Amit, and then Tarun.
Hi, good afternoon. My question to you is that flow-based lending and the one that you're talking about, MSMEs,
What?
Flow-based lending.
Ah.
So my name is Riaz. I represent a company called Bridge to Capital. And my question to you is, when you say 4 years down the line, the MSMEs are going to be having a great time in terms of the lending experience, could you just kind of give a ballpark idea as to how big that asset size could be? Just to give an audience of a
How can I
view.
know what is the asset size? I don't know the asset size of that. I mean, look, I'm telling you a trend which is going to happen. Now, whether that trend will happen in 2 years, 3 years, 7 years, I don't know, because there are so many moving parts, right? There's the regulator, you have to create account aggregators, you have to get all the financial information providers linked into AA, you have to get all the financial information users linked, you have to create customer journeys for different products. There's lots and lots of stuff to make all this come together. But what happens in all this is that it starts gradually and then one day it just takes off. So if you look at the data, Aadhar KYC took off when Reliance Jio got launched. Suddenly there was a huge 100 million new KYCs. UPI took off after demonetization. So each of these things has a point when either an external event or or something, or some market condition or newcomer comes in and he has bold plans, they can change the rules. So I can't predict, but I do believe that it will create a lot of opportunities, but I can't tell you a date and all that.
This is Amit Shukla from EasyGov. My question is how digital monopolies are responding to DPIs?
To DPIs.
Well, I mean, I think everybody is happy with the fact that they can create payments, and we have very successful companies, including big tech companies on UPI. So I don't know how they're responding, but look, what we're doing is we're expanding the market for everyone, right? I mean, India is, today we have 300 million people doing payments. You could never have imagined that there would be 300 million people doing digital payments. It took India 70 years to get to 6 million POS machines. It took India 3 years to have 50 million QR codes. So suddenly the scale and pace of change is like different. So when you create that kind of momentum, then it creates opportunities for everyone, big tech, small tech, new tech, old tech, everybody wins.
Good afternoon. My name is Tarun Mohan from a company called NextGen. I'm working on UPI, 1, 2, 3 pay and everything. I have a basic question. Our whole fundamental of payments in India is on a mobile phone.
Huh?
The whole fundamental of payments in India works on a mobile phone, whether it be a smartphone or a feature phone. Isn't it time to think about making a secure phone device or a secure device or an element in a phone where you can store national IDs, my health certificates, my payment credentials, my UPI Lite has to come on a secure credential, my digital currencies comes on secure credentials.
No, you want them to be brought to what?
A secure credential.
A secure credential on the mobile phone.
Because a phone is the most unsecured today. Android is the most unsecured platform today. You can hack into it and do what you want.
Isn't
So in the
DigiLocker doing
in the SIM card itself, having a trusted enclave where you can do a lot of the security.
Yeah, I guess you can. But I'll just say that there is payments without phone. Aadhaar-enabled payment system does 90 million transactions a month without a phone. You just use your Aadhaar and authentication and you can withdraw money.
Can I get a mic to that? And somebody can take the mic from Tarun. Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Priyanka from corporate strategy team at Swiggy. My question is around, I don't know why this is so loud. Okay, my question is basically around the prepaid versus postpaid economy point that you spoke about. I believe that this whole notion of prepaid versus postpaid, at least in the telecom space, is more of a mental game. Like people believe that they'll be charged more in the postpaid plans, which is also the case. So how is the transition going to happen over the years? And do you believe any catalysts will play an important role here?
Who?
Catalysts, like in UPI, we've had Geo coming in place, demon happening and all that. So any specific catalysts which you foresee for the prepaid to postpaid economy transition?
See, why did prepaid happen in the first place, right? Prepaid happened because when the first wave of mobile telephony took off 20 years back, with leaders like Airtel, Vodafone, Idea, and so on, they had no way of assessing the credit of any customer. And they were on this massive expansion spree. I mean, it's the first time that we had a mass market electronic product, right? I mean, few 100 million people had feature phones. And those people had no identity, they had no bank account, they had no way of telling what, giving any data to make any decisions. So they came up with the idea that you deposit your money and we will give you talk time equal to that. So that's what Prepaid did in the mobile industry. Yeah? So somebody would deposit 10 rupees, he would get 10 rupees of talk time, and then he would consume that and then again go and put in 10 more rupees. So they actually invented the concept of small value transactions, prepaid, because they had no way of actually assessing whether the guy deserves to get credit. Now that has changed. So I don't think that it was really because the market of that day, that was the only product you could do. Now, in my view, somebody is going to provide credit at scale, or not just one guy, maybe 5 guys are going to provide credit at scale. Some are going to focus on consumers, and they're going to ensure that that person buying a biryani on Swiggy can buy it on credit if they so want. And there's be somebody else who will focus on credit to the small business. And they will make sure that the restaurant on Swiggy gets money to buy more stocks. So I think who those guys are, maybe they're in this room, I don't know. They are going to do that, and some of them are going to do it at an accelerated pace. Just like Jio came and did 100 million customers in 6 months. Somebody out there is thinking right now, how do I get every underserved, every person, how do I underwrite every Indian? I think Dilip also said that.
Yeah.
So there are people thinking like that. So somebody's going to, I don't know who the guy, which company is going to do it. And if the credit is there, people will come. There's no question. Everybody wants to be able to buy things or to expand their business. And if you can take 10 million, 20 million small businesses who did not have access to credit, how are they growing? They were growing either with savings from their profits or borrowing from friends and family or borrowing at crazy rates from money lenders. Now, if they can get formal credit from the financial system on tap, on their phone, in real time, it's a new game.
Can you hear me now? Hi, I'm Kanika and I work with IDEO, the global design firm.
Yeah.
I think as Sanjay started 10 years ago, you made a lot of predictions. I want to ask you if you have any thoughts on the future of digital currencies, especially cryptocurrencies. Do you see a world in which that might replace, centralized currency notes or fiat?
Well, I think that the belief that cryptocurrencies will replace fiat currencies, I think that the last few months has shown that that's not going to happen. I think the collapse of FTX and all the blow-ups and all that, I think, and last week I was at the G20 meeting, I think everybody said that, okay, this is not a threat to central sovereign fiat currencies. However, what happened was because of the rise of cryptocurrencies and so on, central banks started saying that maybe we should have a central bank issued digital currency, which are called as CBDCs. So many countries, including India, are issuing CBDCs, which are digital currencies, but backed by the central bank. Now then the question comes, why do you need them? Now, it's on the retail side, if you really have such a good payment system like UPI, there's no argument. The argument is not very clear as to why you need a CBDC, but on the wholesale side, for doing settlement and all that, especially cross-border settlement, then a CBDC can be very useful. For example, today, India's UPI is connected to the Singapore Pay Now, right? And they have put a cap of 3% of commission, which is still much lower than the current prevailing market cost of 6-7%. Now, even that 3% is because of the settlement cost across the border. Now, if Singapore had a CBDC and India had a CBDC, and then you did the settlement through the CBDC, you could further reduce the cost. So that's a direct benefit to some guy. So there's a guy sitting in an oil rig in Singapore sending money to his family in Orissa or something. He directly gets more money in his pocket. So I think the use of CBDCs for wholesale transactions and settlements is a clear use case in my mind. But private cryptocurrencies as a threat, I don't see that anymore based on the events of the last 2 years.
One gentleman from here, and then Aruna, and then I'll close the session.
Hello, sir. This is Vardarajan from iDrive Capital.
I couldn't get your name.
Vardarajan from iDrive Capital. So, like while there is a push for on-tap funding, everything super fast, right? Puneet of Caledofin said that even though I can give a loan for within 5 minutes, he would delay the loan by a day because it kind of incentivizes poor behavior in terms of quicker lending. Now, do we expect founders to do that, or can we get safety systems built into it? Like, because I've seen kind of the SKS microfinances and for quite some time. So, would love your opinion.
No, obviously, I think anytime you create easy and frictionless way of doing things, you can lead to problems, right? I mean, if you give unlimited credit, it'll blow up. You give unlimited money to VCs, give money to startups, they spend it all over the place. Or, so we know that. But I think, so obviously you need to have guardrails on this, and on credit, the guardrails, apart from regulatory guardrails, hopefully will come from the fact that this is going to be data-based credit. It's not just randomly giving somebody. It's based on invoice flows or payment flows. So, and it'll also, the system will be designed to ensure that you can't take credit from multiple guys, which is one of the, I think, problems in microfinance was they end up taking loans from multiple guys. So some of those guardrails are there. I think it will minimize the risk. But that risk is always there. I mean, today there's so much of phishing going on because it's so simple to give your money to somebody that somebody can fool you into giving your money to somebody. So that risk is always there.
Though actually I do want to point out, there's a recent report that, like for example, payment fraud in India is only around 0.1 bips, not even a bips. So, which is much less than what we have seen in the rest of the world.
No, but also because India built two-factor authentication from day one. I mean, in the rest of the world, it's still single factor. And single factor authentication means there's more scope for this thing. I think the fact is, whether it'll be credit card plus PIN, or mobile phone plus PIN, or mobile phone plus Aadhaar auth. So it's all two-factor. So two-factor reduces fraud.
No, it does. In fact, that was what I made a point in some other conference was that the original sin of the credit card industry is that the secret is printed on the card. They started by only the 16-digit number as the only factor of authentication, and that was printed right in front of the card. And so it was prone to fraud, and still the US is resisting changing from there to EMV.
See, one of the things in India is we're the only infrastructure in the world where you have two factors of authentication provided publicly, through a public infrastructure. So your phone is one factor,
right?
Okay. But Aadhaar authentication is a second factor. So I can just combine phone plus Aadhaar authentication, create two-factor authentication. So nobody else can do that. That also helps.
True, it has. Last question, Aruna.
They say no conversation is complete today without addressing women issues. So now I want to pick your brains on women digital financial inclusion side of things, Nandan. My name is Aruna. I run a women financial distribution services company for rural. And incidentally, I'm standing between two women from the Women's World Bank as well. So I want to know what are the organizations, bodies, and the infrastructure, think tanks are doing in this regard?
Regarding women in...
Women digital financial inclusion.
Well, of course, people like you and Women's World Bank are doing. But actually, by the way, I don't know if you've seen the figures. The latest figure shows that bank penetration, account penetration is the same with men and women today in India. So actually, in the last 10 years, we have gone from women being significantly behind to equal in bank accounts. So there has been significant progress. But I think that's up to, again, innovators like you and Kaladofin and others here to actually create opportunities for, and then the government role also. I mean, a big part of this is because many government programs like Ujjwala and all that are targeted to the women. So that means they have to have the bank account. the credit for the LPG goes to that account. So I think the combination of that push infrastructure and push by private players is what's required.
Nandan, it's been a fascinating conversation. It's, as always, it's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And we've had the benefit of your advice through the entire program. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Sanjay. You played a big role in all this. Thank you.